Welcome to my channel. I am JCM Berne, author of The Hybrid Helix and various other things, and occasional YouTuber, as you may realize if you're watching my channel. And today I want to talk about Superman, not Superman in general, but specifically the James Gunn Superman movie that came out in 2025, which is last year, which I just watched. And I know it's been months, but I finally got around to it. I don't have HBO Max, and we had a weekend with nothing else to do. My wife and I were bored, and we were snowed in because we're in New York, and it snowed a whole lot the last 2 days. We watched the movie, and I have some very specific things I want to say about it. This is not a review, although I thought the movie was excellent. Not flawless, but excellent. I want to talk about some specific things about the way the movie was constructed, the philosophy underpinning it, and what makes it so diametrically opposed to Snyder's vision of the same character in the Snyder movies about Superman that I find fundamentally different in a way that I like less. You can argue about which one's more authentic to the character. That's a different discussion. I'm not getting into that. So about the movie, and again, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I don't know if this conversation will make sense otherwise, but I'm not going to hold back because I need to talk about the things that happen in the movie in order to talk about the things that happen in the movie. So there's a few key moments in this film that I think are maybe not talked about enough. They're not as important to the plot as much as they illuminate what Gunn is trying to do with the character in ways that I find utterly fascinating. And the thing you have to remember, of course, is we're starting off with this premise. We have this guy, he's an alien, he's basically invulnerable. Right? He's bulletproof, he's super strong, he can't get sick. He can be hurt, right? He's got this kryptonite, but he sort of grew up not living like a normal person. He grew up in a way that he was extraordinary from a very young age, and he knew it. And, he couldn't ever be seriously, for example, like bullied in high school. Like if the jocks picked on him, you had to imagine this character grew up knowing he could have, laser beamed them all to death or something. And what effect that has on him and how that plays out in him as an adult is what's played in so dramatically different ways by Gunn and Snyder that I find amazing and beautiful. So let's take the first thing. There's a scene in the middle of the film, and it's where Superman has been, people are mad at him because of the message from his parents that says he needs to, conquer the earth and have a secret harem. By the way, I thought the movie would have been phenomenal if instead of, at that point, he'd gone full evil, taken over the world, started a secret harem. I would have watched that movie over and over again. I thought it would have been hilarious. Not what Gunn did, but that's okay. What he does is, rather than come up with ways to rehabilitate his image or, call this stuff fake news or save a bunch of people to, engineer some situation where he could maybe, regain some notion of his popularity, defend himself in the public sphere. Instead, he goes looking for Crypto, the dog. I don't care what you think about Crypto. I really don't care what you think about Crypto. I love Crypto with all my heart. I thought the dog was phenomenal. If you didn't like Crypto, that's fine. This isn't about Crypto. This is about how Superman treats Crypto. So when he's under duress, but he's not actually being threatened physically. No one else is really being threatened physically. I remember at this point, the war has ceased, it's not going on at the moment. There's no immediate threat. There's the dimensional rift between universes hasn't started causing problems yet. There's no city being destroyed. He has a chance to defend himself. You can think of all kinds of things he could have done in a different movie that a different writer would have had him do, but instead, he goes looking to save Crypto. He bursts into Lex's office, threatens him, and that is the angriest that, whatever the guy's name, Superman looks in the entire film is then. Not on his own behalf, not after he was kryptonited and tortured and all this stuff. No, he's angriest at the thought that Crypto has been harmed or is in danger. And he goes after Lex to save Crypto. In the moment of when he's down, when he's doubting himself, when he's in the most trouble, he looks to help who needs help. At that moment, again, there's no plane crashing. There's no war brewing at that moment that he needs to interact upon. But Crypto needs help. So he goes to help. What does he do? In a moment of threat, he goes to help. He looks for someone he can save. He doesn't make a big deal about it. Other people don't make a big deal about saying, oh, when you were in your, difficult moment, you went. Okay, no one says it, but that's what happens. And I've seen people criticize this. Why did he go after the dog? The dog's not important. No, it's because he is fundamentally unafraid. He is fundamentally unafraid. I know I repeated myself. I did that on purpose. It is the most important thing about James Gunn's Superman. He is not scared for himself. He is not driven by fear or concern for himself. Yes, he can be beaten. He's beaten a couple times in this movie, but he's not really... You never see in his eyes that he feels like that's a... Look, what happens the first time he gets beaten? He just flows him. He's like, I'll beat him the next time with no plan, which is a little dumb. You have to admit, it's a little dumb. He throws himself back at the hammer of Baravia, the screwdriver Baravia, whatever the guy's name was. Throws himself right back into the fight. No change in plan, not fully healed. Like, he beat you before when you were at full strength. It was like, yeah, but I got to fight him. He's not afraid for himself. Maybe too unafraid for himself. But he's driven by a desire to help others and not by fear that he might be hurt, that he might be exposed, that he might be... Lois even says he trusts everyone with his secret, that he's Clark Kent. He tells too many people. He doesn't have that fear-driven mentality. Oh, I can't let my secret out. Oh, I have to protect myself. He's not afraid because he's Superman. He's so strong and so powerful. He's not worried about himself. His concerns are for others. Primarily, almost entirely, and not for himself. When he is being beaten up by the public, he doesn't like it. You know, it hurts him. The hashtags that I forget what they are, but there are hashtags they mentioned on social media. People are ripping him apart. He doesn't like it. It upsets him, but he doesn't go after them. He doesn't try to do anything about it because he's not fundamentally concerned with himself. He's fundamentally concerned with helping others. Huge difference. Now, I want to go into great depth, but Snyder's Superman is the opposite. He's a character completely driven by fear. He's a character who spends most of the film, most of his life, sort of before the film starts. He's a fully grown adult, and he spent most of his adult life mostly hiding, afraid the government's going to get him and experiment on him. You notice what I just said? He spends his life afraid. He has to that's the thing he has to overcome, I guess, to take action, but he's coming from a place of afraid for himself. And you can see why in the Snyder movies. His father had raised him to be afraid for himself. And you gotta keep it a secret. Always hammering. It's not hammering on him. You have great powers. You've got to help people. You've got to change the world because you have these amazing abilities. No, it's you have these amazing abilities. You have to hide them or they'll turn you into an experiment. They'll make you a lab rat. No, you've got to hide. Don't help anyone. Don't even save me. Right? That's what the Snyder father says. What's his name? Kent. The character who plays the man who raised Kal-El on Earth. Doesn't even want him to Kal-El to save him because of the fear of being exposed. There's this driven, all his actions are driven by this fear of what might happen, whereas Gunn's Superman is driven by a desire to see what could happen, what positive things could he do, who could he save, what wars could he stop. It's a completely different, opposite mindset. It's a completely different, political framework, if you want to go there, which I might at the end of this video. We'll see how I feel. Very dramatic. The second thing is Gunn's taking a huge shot at certain kinds of religious people, which I find, I'm very sympathetic to this shot. I think I agree with him. And, there's many people who engage in religions and they explain like, oh, you should help the poor because it says so in our holy text or in the speakings of our holy leaders. We should help the poor and we should engage in various different kinds of moral activities. And for the most part, most religions, for the most part, align more or less with what we understand as a compassionate human beings to be good things to do. A religion that really says you should really murder your neighbor at the first opportunity and those religions don't last very long because the society breaks down, right? It doesn't work well. And what Superman does, what's beautiful, is he treats his message from his parents in the beginning the way some people treat their religion, which is he says, I'm a good person because my parents told me to be. And when we realize what the character arc in regards to that message, I find amazing and beautiful and perfect. Because when he finds out that his parents actually didn't tell him to be a good person, they told him to conquer the earth and murder everybody and make a secret harem, he realizes that the message had never been the driving force before. What had been the driving force all along was his human, personish, his sense of compassion. He had compassion and love for people. He wanted to protect and help them. And the fact that that's why he interpreted his parents' message to align with his own compassion. And this is how many religious people treat their texts. For example, in Judeo-Christianity, most people don't actually follow the letter of the Bible when they make decisions, they don't go, oh, should I murder? I don't know. I can't tell if murder is wrong or not. Let's check the book. Hey, Jimmy, bring out the book. Let's see if it says I'm allowed to murder, because I'm not sure. That never happens. People also rarely go into the Bible and actually look up all, like, oh, yep. This line from Leviticus, I've been wearing artificial fibers and not keeping the Sabbath, or my neighbor to keep the Sabbath either, better go stone him and then throw out all my polyester. People don't do that. People look for the book where it follows their understanding of morality, not vice versa. And this is kind of what Superman did. He had a notion of the moral thing to do. His only book was the half message from his parents. When he realized that the message wasn't what he had thought, he doesn't become an evil dictator, because he was never really driven by the message. If he had really been good all along because of the message, then when he realized, oh, the message, I read it wrong, I didn't have the whole thing, thanks Lex for fixing it, now I'm going to conquer the world, right? That's what he would have done. But he clearly was never going to do that, because his motivating force all along was base human compassion, not adherence to the text. And that's I assume Gunn knows what he's doing, and he's taking a sort of dig at people who use literal interpretations of their holy texts to justify bad things. People will, say stuff like, oh, but I don't want to do this. You may not think this is moral, but my book says so. And James Gunn is sort of pointing out, like, that's not how books work. No one really adheres to books that way. They only check the book to see if it matches with their own understanding of morality. It's a cart and horse thing, and we can see which is the cart and which is the horse in the Superman movie. It's a beautiful dig. The last beautiful philosophical moral statement made, of course, is by I can't remember the guy's name, the senior Kent, Mr. Kent, right? The man who raised Clark, says to him, adults don't decide what their parents don't decide what their children's are going to be. And that's an existentialist thing. It's, you have to decide for yourself who you are by your actions. And again, it's also a progressive mentality, a certain mentality about childhood and about independence and what happens from generation to generation. Do you force people to be what you want them to be, or do you give them the tools and let them choose? James Gunn's philosophy, I have to assume it's James Gunn's personal philosophy that's because it's bleeding through every frame of this film. It happens to be, I think maybe in all parts, but at least in most parts, a philosophy I very strongly agree with, which is why it resonated with me specifically. And it is deeply opposed to Snyder's, right? In Snyder's, the senior Ken tried to forge his child into the thing he wanted him to be. I'm going to make you afraid like me. I'm going to make you stay safe. And he did it out of love, right? He's not a bad guy. He's not a bad person. The Snyder's senior Kent, right? He loves his son. He wants his son to be safe, but he's driven by fear. And Gunn's senior Kent, he's not driven by fear. He's not afraid. He trusts his son to do the right thing, to be a good person. He's proud of him. He lifts him up. He doesn't say, if you save these people, then I'll be proud of you. Just, I'm proud of you. I know you're going to do good. Now go do good, because that's who you are. And to me, it's a much more powerful message. But it's a dramatically different message than what Snyder was giving us, where I guess in some sense you could say Snyder was saying that fear-driven behavior was something that Superman had to overcome, but he was riddled with it into his, like, I think the character in the Snyder movies is in his 30s or something when he starts saving people and kind of coming out of the closet, not the closet, you know what I mean? And that's a very powerful difference. This guy, Corn Sweat, whatever his name is, Gunn's Superman is not driven. He's not driven by fear. And this is fundamentally, in a political sense, this is a progressive versus conservative mindset. It's a complete. And I don't know if Snyder's conservative politically. I actually have no idea what his personal politics are. And this isn't Democrat or Republican. This is progressive versus conservative mindsets. There are people with these two mindsets in both parties. Maybe not equally distributed, but in both parties. But the conservative mindset is driven by fear, right? Like, oh, I'm worried about crime, I'm worried about immigrants taking my jobs, I'm worried about change. Change can be bad. Let's not change. Let's go back to the way things were. Let's conserve. Let's protect what we have. Let's keep it the way it was, because we know it worked for me. It worked for my family. Let's hold on to that. That's worth keeping. Whereas the progressive is saying, let's change some stuff. What can we do? Maybe we can get, health care for everybody. Maybe we can get universal child care. there. Maybe we can control rents. Maybe we can make things better for regular people. We don't have to stay with the way things were. I'm not afraid. We'll take some risks. Maybe if we legalize marijuana, crime will go up. I don't know, maybe, but let's try it because what we've been doing isn't working great. And there's lots of reasons to try things. It's a fundamentally different thing. And, Snyder's Superman was at his heart that conservative. And it's not all negative, right? Conservative means helping, saving, protecting. That's all good stuff. Whereas Gunn's is fundamentally a progressive Superman. He's looking to change things. He's looking to make things better. He is not afraid. He does not think you've got to go back to the way things used to be in order to keep everybody safe from these imagined threats. It's Lex who sees these threats. It's Lex who sees Superman as this, alien, right? This he could do these dangerous things. He could be a menace. Look, when you're the most powerful, think about figures. When you're the most powerful person on earth, what do you do with your authority, with your power? Do you use it to lash out at your enemies? Do you use it to mock your enemies? Do you use it to belittle other people, or do you use it to try to lift them up? And you can see the conservative versus progressive mindset. You can point to specific people in politics today and look at the people who have the most power. What are they doing? Are they fear-mongering? Are they saying, you should worry about crime? You should worry about Somali immigrants eating your cats, or whatever it is that they say? Or are they trying to say, we can make things better. We can do stuff. We can improve the lives of everyday people if we just do it. We can protect innocent girls, right? Whether they're being victimized today or they're victimized in the past. We can go after the people who really did hurt them. And I'm spinning off into politics, but I don't know that you can watch this movie and understand this movie and not spin off into politics, because it is deeply political, never mentions a candidate, as far as I can tell, never mentions a political party, never mentions an election, doesn't really have an analog to our world, right? It takes place on an imaginary Earth. Metropolis isn't a real city. I checked it in Google Maps, it's not there. But it is a deeply political response to Snyder's Superman. Which, again, I'm not saying Snyder had a conservative agenda. I'm not sure he's aware of the way someone like me would interpret his choices when he made the Superman movies. Maybe he does. Maybe he meant it all that way, and I'm missing. I don't know. I don't know the guy. But I have to think that Gunn, it was so relentless how he packed so much of that into every aspect of the movie, many different threads. I have to think he did it on purpose. So, saving crypto was the moral crux of the film. When Superman was under threat, when he was under attack in the social eye, in the public eye, instead of looking for ways to save himself, he said, who needs my help? What innocent thing is out there that it's the dog? And he went to save the dog, and that was his first priority. And that is beautiful. And that is not exactly how I write my characters, but it is very much the spirit of what I'm trying to do in my own series, which you should read, and especially buy Hybrid Helix. I write superhero stories, and this is the kind of... I watched this. I had already been writing for many years when I watched this movie. This movie didn't inspire me, right? I just saw the movie literally today. I've been writing the Hybrid Helix for 6 years. But this is the kind of story that inspired me to write a character who is truly strong, who is truly not afraid, who is truly inspired to try to make things better, and is not simply scared and worried about threats that may happen, generally speaking. Okay, so love the movie. Again, this is not meant to be a review of the film. This was not meant to be a critical. This is meant to be something of a critical analysis of pieces of the movie. Crypto is super important. And the fact that the message from his parents was not, I don't think that was true to the comics. I don't think his origin was true to the comics, right? That his parents didn't send him to Earth to be a conqueror. That wasn't how the comic Superman worked. That change was super important because it told us an incredibly important thing about Superman. He was never good because his parents told him to be good. He was good because he was good, because he had compassion, because he had human feeling. And he ascribed it to the message, but it was never the message. It was never the text. And that is an important understanding and realization that we could all use some of. And I think it's also very general. I think when people are good, they're not good because their church told them to be good. They're good because they're good. And then the church may reinforce it. But that's not the origin of it. That's not where it comes from. That's my thoughts on Superman and on all of politics in the world. And I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any comments, which you may, feel free to leave comments on this video. And I hope you guys have a great time. And if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. I really liked it. Again, not flawless, but I really liked it. Take care.